My favorite experience in any video game is satisfying my curiosity through exploration. And so it's no surprise that Legacy of the Botanist, the game that I'm developing and that I'm here to tell you about in this video, takes a fair amount of inspiration from games like Outer Wilds, but in a slightly different way and with magical plants. And so in this video, I will tell you everything that you need to know about Legacy of the Botanist, the context of the game, how it's being made, and most importantly, its core mechanics, how you actually play the game. And by the way, I'm currently planning to release the game in October of this year, which is 2025. But with that being said, there is a pre-release Steam page up already, which I will link to in the description. So if this game sounds like something you would enjoy, consider wishlisting it on Steam. So first of all, what's the context of Legacy of the Botanist? In other words, what's the setup? Well, Legacy of the Botanist starts the player on the edge of an unfamiliar island, a setup which is by no means new. But as you explore this land, you quickly discover two important things. First, there are strange plants in this land. I'm going to talk a lot more about this when I discuss the game's mechanics, but suffice it to say that how you use these plants defines how you explore the world. The second thing you discover, though, is that you're clearly not the first one to come here. Now, before we dive into the specifics of gameplay, how is this game being made? Well, this is a solo developer project, and I am the solo developer. It's just me. Now, the game itself is being built in the Godot game engine, while all the 3D assets are made from scratch in Blender by yours truly. And it feels important for me to say right now that this is a 100% human-made game. In other words, there is no AI used at any stage of development. 95% of the code is written entirely by me, while the other 5% is borrowed or adapted from other humans. And the logo, icon, and some UI elements were made by a separate digital artist without the use of AI. Now, more than ever, I think it's important to be clear and forward about that, and I think it's critical to prioritize human-made games and to make games as humans. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's look at how to actually play the game. As I've said, Legacy of the Botanist is about exploration, but you use the plants you find around the island to help you accomplish that exploration. Now, there are 5 plants total, though I won't reveal all of them here, because knowing what they are ahead of time changes the way that you experience the game, and how you see the world around you, because over time, these plants have a bit of a Metroidvania-style effect, where things you've seen and areas you've passed through before now look different when you go back through them with a new plant at your disposal. Now, the first plant you find is called Herba Solaris. When you pick plants in Legacy of the Botanist, that plant goes into your inventory, and then the active item is shown at the bottom of your screen. You can use the scroll wheel on your mouse to cycle through the different items in your inventory to change what is active. When you use the active item in your inventory, if it's a plant, you consume it and you gain its effects. All of this is really groundbreaking stuff. I know. The idea is for the player to not worry so much about inventory management and dealing with a messy UI, and instead spending more time exploring and interacting with the world around them. Now, the first plant you find is Herba Solaris, like I said, and it also has the most basic effect in the game, because when you consume Herba Solaris, your speed increases. This means that you can explore faster, yes, but it also means that you can jump farther. But there's a problem here already. What happens if you run out of plants? You can always explore around and find more to harvest, but what if you run out of those? Well, the solution is pretty much what you would expect. It's seeds. Every time you eat a plant in the game, you get that plant's seed. And as long as you're standing on dirt or grass, you can plant that seed. And this is especially nice for players who might want to take more time to explore the land around them. They don't have to worry so much about resource management. They can always just grow a little garden instead. Okay, so plants help you explore the world, but what are the limits within it? Well, not to go all Todd Howard on you, but every part of the world has collision, which means that if you see the mountain, you can climb the mountain. And you can go anywhere you see in the game, except for water. Because if you fall in the water, you will go back to your last spawn point, which brings me to our fire rings. All around the world, you will find fire rings like these. Activating a fire ring will light it, and this sets your spawn point to that fire ring. This is also where you will save the game, at least as of now. So if you fall into the ocean, you will respawn back at the last fire ring that you lit. Now, at this point, you may have noticed gates like these. These are part of the infrastructure left behind by the botanist, and their intended purpose you will discover on your own. But in terms of gameplay, there are 2 ways to deal with them: the straightforward way and the explorer's way. Each gate is connected to a mechanism that opens it, and you can easily see where that mechanism is by following the chain of crystals that lead to it. Though how to actually get to that spot can be a bit trickier and requires a bit of problem solving. And so while these gates do provide a bit of a clear path forward for players who might want it, there is another way. You see, there is a way to bypass every single gate in the game, and that's by finding secret paths or shortcuts that go around the gates. These are not always easy or simple to find, but I hope that doing so provides a new level of satisfaction. So you could beat the entire game without ever opening a gate, which I think will become one of the game's achievements. But I will tell you this, doing so will basically be impossible without also discovering some of the game's hidden artifacts. For instance, we have Horus's Lantern, which gives the player a spotlight. Very straightforward, but very helpful for navigating darker areas of the game, like caves. But we also have this pocket watch, which will increase the duration of plant effects in the game. And just like there are 5 plants, there are also 5 artifacts. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how the game is going to play, but now we have the question of what is left to do between now and release. Currently, about 85 to 90% of the world is complete. There's still a small amount of late game area that I'm refining, but once that's complete, the next big task will be filling out the world with more narrative detail in the form of notes, abandoned structures, and other environmental storytelling. I also need to add game settings, finish the save load system, and polish the user interface a bit more, which is the stuff that I like doing the least, but I know it's some of the most important parts of the game. Now, most of the visuals you've seen in this video are close to finalized, which means that this game clearly prioritizes experience over looks. Though some changes to textures, colors, and general environment diversity is on my to-do list. Finally, I will be seeking playtesters to get real feedback about the game, find issues, and refine the experience. But with all of that being said, there are 2 things you can do to stay in the loop. First is to wishlist Legacy of the Botanist on Steam, which I have linked down in the description. And the second is to subscribe to this channel, because I will be doing more frequent updates here, both long form and short form. And last of all, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And I really look forward to hearing what you have to say.